Hello. So chapter 45, Pride and Prejudice. Let's continue on. Shout out to all of you that are awake right now. It's 1:00 in the afternoon. I sure as heck hope that you guys are finally awake. I know some of you aren't, but hopefully you'll be able to go back and review this. All right, question number 1. When arriving at Pemberley, name all of the women who received Elizabeth and Mrs. Gardiner. So there was Georgiana Darcy, her companion Mrs. Ainsley, Mrs. Hurst, as well as Miss Bingley. So there were 4 women that met Elizabeth as they came in. Number 2, before the lunch was brought in, in what did Miss Bingley ask Elizabeth? Describe the tone. And I want to read this specifically to you. That woman, oh, she's just got to give up, but she's so dense. That Caroline Bingley, oh, we've all met Caroline Bingleys in our life, haven't we? And if you haven't, you will. And you will look at her and you'll go, you're Caroline Bingley. Mrs. Schroeder told me about you when I was a senior in high school, when I was quarantined for that crazy coronacation. All right, let's look at question number 2 again. Elizabeth was roused by receiving from her a cold inquiry after the health of her family. She answered with equal indifference and brevity, and the others said no more. So Caroline Bingley said, and how is your family? Because she was done. Caroline Bingley thought, I'm going to get to Pemberley and I'm going to have Darcy all to myself. All these other ladies of London that have been after him for the last several months, get away. I'm going to be in his house. I'm going to be around his sister. My brother's his best friend. So y'all have no chance. And then, ta-da! Here comes Elizabeth Bennet. And Caroline's like, curses, foiled again, just like in Scooby-Doo. But there's no rascally pup. It happens. However, Caroline was irritated. She was so bugged. And she wanted to ask Elizabeth about her family. Well, she didn't want to, but it's proper manners. And so she felt required to ask Elizabeth about her family. But in addition to that, she really wanted to bring back up, hey, you shouldn't be here. You're not like us. This isn't your gig. You don't deserve to be at Pemberley. So you really should not get used to this. Don't get comfortable. And how is your family? Basically saying, and how is your white trash? How are your white trash relatives doing? Yeah. Don't think I've forgotten about them at all. And that's what she's really saying to Elizabeth. And so Elizabeth responds with equal indifference and coldness, like, they're fine, thanks. Whatever. Let's look at the next question. Number 3, who did Miss Bingley allude to, which puts Georgiana and Elizabeth out of sorts? Oh, Caroline Bingley, you're shooting yourself in the foot, you fool. She alludes to Mr. Wickham. Now remember, Georgiana does not know that Elizabeth knows about Wickham. And Caroline Bingley definitely does not know about Wickham. Because as I mentioned in class before we were on our coronacation, Caroline Bingley would have totally used that against Darcy and blackmailed him and basically forced him to marry her. Like, oh, you don't want your sister to be ruined in the Tom, then I guess you should marry me, huh? Oh, so let's go ahead and read exactly what she says. Pray, Miss Eliza. I'm sorry, I'm not Liam Benedict, so I can't do a fantastic British accent. I wish I could, because Liam, as he said, does a better female British accent than he does a male British accent, but I'll try. Pray, Miss Eliza, are not the militia removed from Meryton? They must be a great loss to your family. In Darcy's presence, she dared not mention Wickham because she knew how much Darcy hated Wickham. She still didn't know why, other than, oh, he's beneath you. But she wouldn't mention his name, but there was an allusion. But Elizabeth instantly comprehended that he was uppermost in Miss Bingley's thoughts, and the various recollections connected with him gave her a moment's distress. But exerting herself vigorously to repel the ill-natured attack, she presently answered the question in a tolerably disengaged tone. While she spoke, an involuntary glance showed her that Darcy, with a heightened complexion, earnestly looking at her, and his sister was overcome with confusion and unable to lift her eyes. Stupid, stupid Caroline Bingley. Girl, you are trying so hard to win this man. He doesn't want you, number 1. Number 2, you are putting his sister in distress, which is going to make him hate you. Oh my gosh, girl's note to self. Don't bring up anything like that. Ex-boyfriends, friends, it's just not worth it. Just don't play games. Women, don't play games. Guys, can I hear an amen? I heard it. Okay, let's continue on. I want to read a part that's not included in your questions because here it says, had Miss Bingley known what pain she was then giving her beloved friend, she undoubtedly would have refrained from the hint, but she had merely intended to discompose Elizabeth by bringing forward the idea of a man to whom she believed Elizabeth partial, to make Elizabeth betray a sensibility which might injure her in Darcy's opinion, and perhaps to remind Mr. Darcy of all of the follies and absurdities by which some part of Elizabeth's family were connected to with the militia. So she's once again trying to play whatever card she has. She's pulling this out of her back pocket and this out of her back pocket, and both of them are useless. Whoop, so she's getting rid of those, pulling something else and pulling something else and whoop, getting rid of it, and it's useless. Honey, you don't have a card to play. Just quit. Get out of this game. Let's move on. Question number 4, I've already answered that. Question number 5, why did Georgiana not partake in the criticism of Elizabeth Bennet after Lizzie left? Well, one of the main reasons was that she liked Elizabeth a lot. She felt that Elizabeth was real, that Elizabeth was sincere. But more importantly, her brother liked Elizabeth. Her brother spoke very well of Elizabeth. And because Mr. Darcy spoke well of Elizabeth, Georgiana knew that there was nothing wrong with Elizabeth, that Caroline Bingley was just a selfish old goat, or a grumpy old troll, as I called Mr. Schroeder this morning. Let's go ahead and move on. Number 6, what did Darcy reply? This is like a really good part. What did Darcy reply when Caroline stated that she believed at one point Darcy thought Lizzie rather pretty? So let's look at this whole section because I'm only in this 6 minutes and we're doing pretty dang well. So I want to look at, I have my notations in my book. See, I know you miss my book. You miss looking at it and going, girl, I know you don't have all those things, all those notations. You don't know what they are. Oh, I do. Oh, I do. Here we go. Question number 6. Because Caroline Bingley said, I remember when we first were in Hertfordshire. Liam, how am I doing? Kevin Sumner, am I doing okay with the voice? I'll try it again. I remember when we were first knew her in Hertfordshire, how amazed we all were to find that she was a reputed beauty. And I particularly remember your saying one night after they had been dining at Netherfield, she a beauty? I would just as soon call her mother a wit. Oh! But afterwards, she seemed to improve on you, and I believe you thought her rather pretty at one time. Yes, replied Darcy. I'm not even going to do Darcy's voice. It's not going to happen. I just want you to imagine bloop, bloop, bloop in your mind. Yes, replied Darcy, who could contain himself no longer. So think about it. He's sitting there listening to this badgering codger talk crap on the woman that he loves. And he has to sit there and be a gentleman. And he can't reprimand Caroline Bingley because it's not his place. It is her brother, Charles Bingley's place to shut her up because Charles is the head of the Bingley family. So it's his responsibility to shut up Caroline, but he's not because he's spineless. But moving on, we like Mr. Bingley. He's a nice guy. He's perfect for Jane. However, here he finally looks at Caroline Bingley, and the only way he could shut her up, he can't say, shut up, crony. Instead, he says, yes, but that was only when I first knew her. For it has been many months since I have considered her as the handsomest woman of my acquaintance. So he's like, yeah, you're right. You know, I didn't think she was that cute when I first met her, but now I think she's pretty freaking hot. And Caroline Bingley's like, oh, oh, oh. And it's true because it then says, he then went away and Miss Bingley was left to all the satisfaction of having forced him to say what gave no one any pain but herself. So nobody was bothered by what he said, by him saying that Elizabeth was quite attractive. It didn't bother Mrs. Hurst. It didn't bother Mr. Bingley because he was in love with Jane. Mr. Hurst was probably drunk and asleep at this point. Georgiana had already left the room. And so it didn't bother anybody that Darcy's like, yeah, I think she's pretty attractive now. It didn't hurt anybody but Caroline Bingley. Let's continue. Finally, I know you guys are like, Shro, follow along. Number 7, what did Elizabeth want to speak about to her Aunt Gardner? She really wanted to talk to her aunt about all of these feelings that she was having for Darcy. She had never felt this way before about anybody, how much she thought about him. And she wanted to ask her aunt, do you like him? You think he's a nice guy? What do you think? Do you think he likes me? Do you think that he thinks I'm cute? Was I throwing myself at him? I wasn't trying to. What do you think? What do you think? But she didn't want to open herself up because she still would then have honestly have to probably divulge more information than she was willing to about the aunt about how she rejected him already once, how she shredded him, how she destroyed him emotionally. And then she would have had to really explain why she felt that way. And it would have shown her own personal weakness, that she isn't as good a judge of character. And it's hard when you know something about yourself, it's hard to admit it to others. It's something that you really want to try to keep inside and deal with and process. And that's what she's trying to do right now. She's trying to process that. Okay, I think, hold on before I jump ahead. All right, that's the end of chapter 45. 10 minutes and 52 seconds. We are doing fantastic. I will see you for chapter 46. Whoop, whoop. Have a great day, LRHS.